Thank you all for coming out today. Indeed, this is a difficult day for all of us, especially for Barry's family, for Debbie, for Aaron, for Hillary and Aaron, for Josie and Eli, for Carl and Denny, Sue and Rich, Gary and Diane, and all the extended family who are here. Your loss is our loss. Your loss is humanity's loss. It's our community's loss. It's our world's loss. I pray that God might bind up your sorrow and your mourning. And as God spreads his tabernacle of peace, his shelter of peace over Barry and life eternal, so may God keep all of you embraced in his peace. I pray that all of us can bring some modicum of consolation and comfort to this family. We're at a time of transition with this pandemic, and we are thankful that we can gather here together inside the sanctuary. And I hope and I pray that no matter what your comfort level is, you will continue to keep Debbie and the kids in your thoughts and prayers and be God's presence for them, whether that's a presence via phone or Zoom or in person. Let them know that they are deeply loved and cared for by all of you, by all of us, as Barry was. Let me begin with a reading I think exemplifies Barry. We are gathered here today to bid farewell to a person who will be sorely missed by his family and by many friends. Our feelings are best expressed at this difficult moment in this brief poem, which seems, as I said, to capture the essence of Barry's life. The poem is entitled "The Measure of a Man." Not how did he die, but how did he live? Not what did he gain, but what did he give? These are the units to measure the worth of a man as a man, regardless of birth. Not what was his station, but had he a heart? And how did he play his God-given part? Was he ready with a word of good cheer to bring back a smile, to banish a tear? Not what was his shrine, nor what was his creed, but had he befriended those really in need? Not what did the sketch in the newspaper say, but how many were sorry when he passed away? Friends, by these standards and by whatever standards we may measure the life of a person, in the passing of Barry Glick, we have all suffered a great loss. Death has taken our beloved Barry from us, and our souls cry out to God. Adonai ma adam v'tedaehu ben enosh v'techashvehu. Oh God, what are we that you have regard for us? What are we that you are mindful of us? Our days are like a passing shadow. We come and go like grass, which in the morning shoots up renewed, and in the evening fades and withers. You cause us to return to the dust, saying, "Return, O mortal creatures." Would that we were wise, that we understood where we are going. When we die, we carry nothing away. So mark the wholehearted and behold the upright. They shall have peace. O God, you redeem the souls of your servants, and none who trust in you shall be desolate. For those who knew Barry, we all know the struggle and challenge he's had these past few years with illness. No doubt, he was taken too soon from his family and from his friends. Let me share this reading which comes from the wisdom of Solomon. A good person, though taken from us too soon, will rest in peace. For honor in old age does not come from length of life. Understanding is the gray hair of humanity. A blameless life is ripeness of age. Perfection in limited years is like living for many years. So a good person, though taken from us too soon, will rest in peace. Let us then, with peace of mind, let that good soul rest. Rabbi Keller is going to continue, as our tradition informs us and encourages us to listen to the words of Psalms, which help literally elevate the soul of our departed Barry to the vaults of heaven, and I pray brings us comfort and consolation.
אשא עיני אל ההרים, מאין יבוא עזרי. I lift my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your protector will not slumber. See, the protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian. God is your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your soul, your going and coming, now and forever, says Psalm 121. And the words of King Solomon, לכל זמן ועת לכל חפץ תחת השמיים, עת ללדת ועת למות, עת לטעת ועת לעקור נטוע. For everything there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. We're taught that each of us has three names. The name that our parents give us, the name that we're known by, and the name we make for ourselves. And for those of us in this room, for those of us in the live stream, and for anyone who has been in the presence of Barry, we know the name that he made for himself because it connects with all of us. No one didn't love Barry. No one. And so with that, it's as if the psalmist wrote Psalm 16 just for him. I've set the eternal always before me. God is at my side. I shall not be moved. Therefore does my heart exult and my soul rejoice. My being is secure, for you will not abandon me to death, nor let your faithful ones see destruction. You show me the path of life. Your presence brings fullness of joy. Enduring happiness is your gift. Happy are those who have not followed the counsel of the wicked or taken the path of sinners or join the company of the insolent. Rather, the teaching of God is their delight, and they study that teaching day and night. They are like a tree planted beside streams of water that yields its fruit in season, whose foliage never fades and whose fruit always flourishes. We continue now with Psalm 23, and we invite Cantor Muchnick to share the beautiful words with us. Once again, Psalm 23.
Mizmor leDavid, Adonai roi lo echsar, binot asher yarvitzeni al mei menuchot ינעלני. נפשי ישובב, נפשי ישובב, ינחני ומגלי צדק למען שמו. גם כי אלך בגיא צל מוות, לא ירא רע, כי אתה עמדי. שבטך ומשענתך, שבטך ומשענתך, המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני שולחן, תערוך לפני שולחן, תערוך לפני שולחן, נגד צוררי. דשנת ושמן ראשי, דשנת ושמן ראשי, דשנת ושמן ראשי, כוסי רוויה. אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני, ירדפוני כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני, ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים.
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
The words of the 23rd Psalm, I pray, brings comfort and consolation to everyone. For Barry's reward now is Olam Haba, the world to come, Gan Eden, Garden of Eden, paradise, heaven. This beautiful place that the psalmist depicts for us in the psalm, lying down in green pastures and led by still waters, with the assurance again that God restores our soul. Barry's soul is as alive and is as vital this moment, our tradition believes, as it was days, weeks, months, years ago. Now just bound up in the bonds of eternal life with God. And I always, when I share this psalm, make the point that because of our deep affection for Barry, his family and all of his friends have entered now this valley of where the shadows of death are upon us. And I pray that we do not fear, for we know that Barry's soul continues to live on. All that he taught us through his life lives on. I've always said when we read this psalm that the goodness and mercy follow us in life. And I never tire of pointing out that none of us has a guarantee from God that our life will be only good and merciful. Most of us, in fact, suffer challenges in our lives. Many of us confront illness. We confront loneliness, loss. The assurance the psalmist tells us is that goodness and mercy follow us. They are there to strengthen us, to comfort us, to put us back on our feet when we fall, and help us move forward in our lives until finally called by God. I know that the goodness and mercy God provided Barry was Debbie and Aaron and Hillary and Aaron and Josie and Eli. I know the goodness that mercy that God provided Barry was all of his extended family, all of his friends who cared so deeply about him. He will be like a tree planted in the earth whose roots have gone deep into the soil, whose fruit will always flourish. I know his family will always flourish. His fruit, the family that he leaves behind, all of us, we will blossom and we will bear sweeter fruit in this world because of Barry. We are privileged to hear from many in his family today. So we're going to begin with his son Aaron. Following Aaron will be his daughter and son-in-law, Hillary and Aaron, and then his brother Carl and his brother-in-law Rich, and finally we'll hear from Debbie. Aaron.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you, Cantor. And thank you all for coming today. Good afternoon. Not the circumstances that I was expecting to reunite with so many friends and family after the past year and a half, but it is good to see everyone. I also want to start by extending my condolences to anyone here who has lost a parent, a spouse. Well, I don't know exactly how you felt at that time. I know how I feel right now. And I imagine that at least some of you are re-experiencing those same emotions that you felt before. And I want to thank you for your strength in coming here today. What I can explain is that I keep thinking about my dad. And what keeps popping in my head is how he taught us. Not by literally teaching us, but by demonstrating through his actions what it means to be a good person. He also had a number of sayings, a number of mantras that he would often recite to us to motivate us. And what I wanted to do today is to share 3 of those that were most meaningful to me. Mantra number 1. If you act enthusiastic, then you'll be enthusiastic. This is one of my favorite phrases from him, and it's one of the earliest memories I have of my dad. I think I was 3 or 4 years old, and he would not just say the words to me, he would say them with gusto. You couldn't just say the words, you had to say, if you act enthusiastic, then you'll be enthusiastic. And nothing exemplifies this spirit more than his battle with cancer. He didn't want to hear statistics. He didn't want to learn about side effects. He didn't want to think about what bad things may happen. He told me a few years ago that every day when he woke up, he felt lucky. I can't think of another person who felt so much enthusiasm and so much luck after being diagnosed with multiple cancers. Mantra number 2. First, do what you have to do, then do what you want to do. In terms of what he had to do, Dad's priorities were clear. His family and his health. Actually, our whole family's health. Those always came first. For example, despite his busy schedule at work and otherwise, when his mom, my grandma, was sick, he would visit her during the week for lunch so she wouldn't have to eat alone. Family and health. Then once he did what he had to do, and only after that, he had fun. His pastimes included golf, a lot of golf, bowling, Broadway shows, poker, movies, traveling. Some of my best memories are father-son trips, hiking in Yosemite, mountain biking in Banff, snowmobiling in Yellowstone. He loved national parks. He really enjoyed life. Mantra number 3, do good work and good things will come. I remember I once asked my dad for advice about requesting a promotion at work. He looked horrified. He said he never even asked for a raise in his life. His philosophy was do good work and good things will come. As many of you know, he worked so hard, but he never boasted about it. He never asked for credit. He never liked to be in the spotlight. My dad was one of the most humble people you could ever meet. And despite that, or maybe because of that, good things did come. So I hope these mantras inspire you as much as they continue to inspire me. If you act enthusiastic, then you'll be enthusiastic. First, do what you have to do, then do what you want to do. Do good work and good things will come. Before I wrap, there's one more thing. My dad had a favorite poem, so another poem today. And I think this is as relevant today as it was when he read it at my bar mitzvah 10 years ago. Okay, 30 years ago. It's called The Man in the Glass. And thank you, Mom, for reminding me about this. When you get what you want in your struggle for self, and the world makes you king for a day, just go to the mirror and look at yourself and see what that man has to say. For it isn't your father or mother or wife whose judgment upon you must pass. The fellow whose verdict counts most in your life is the one staring back from the glass. He's the fellow to please, never mind all the rest, for he's with you, clear to the end. You've passed your most difficult, dangerous test if the man in the glass is your friend. You may fool the whole world down the pathway of years and get pats on the back as you pass, but your final reward will be heartache and tears if you've cheated the man in the glass. I'd like to repeat what I think are the best two lines just one more time. You've passed your most difficult, dangerous test if the man in the glass is your friend. Dad, you filled your life with the utmost values of integrity, humility, authenticity, and optimism. When you looked at the man in the glass, I know you passed the test. I can only hope that we all can do the same. In closing, I want to recognize my sister, Hillary, my brother-in-law, but I'd like to call you my brother, Aaron, Josie, Eli. I adore you all, and I admire that you're continuing the tradition of a close-knit family that exemplifies the Glicks. And I want to recognize my incredibly strong, wise, and talented mom. She lost her love and her best friend this week. But Mom, look around. You're definitely not alone. I'm so grateful that she has all of you as friends, not just during this time, but during the years to come. Mom, Dad, I will love you always. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Hillary. Oh, whoops. I like to make an impression. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us to remember and celebrate my dad. Over the past few days, I have felt so much love and overwhelming support. I have considered myself so fortunate to have and have had so many uniquely special male role models in my life. My grandpa, Bob Glick, my Zadie, Herman Karnowski, my father-in-law, Vern Domu, my brother, Aaron, my husband, Aaron, and even our son, Eli, most of the time at least. But my dad has always been my person, my hero, in an understated way. In fact, I feel bad for my husband. For those of you who know him, you know that he is a superhuman. But the poor guy cannot catch a break, because I'm constantly saying, well, Barry would do it this way, or Barry would do it that way. Barry would have had cash in his wallet. Barry would have filled up my gas tank. Barry would have unloaded the dishwasher.
You're stealing my speech, by the way.
Even before these past few days, whenever someone would mention my dad or I would think about him, I would smile from the inside out and beam with pride. How lucky am I to be his daughter? He was never the center of attention or the most extroverted person at the party, unless maybe he had a couple drinks at the Slivka holiday party. But he was the guy who could listen better than anyone I know. He was gifted at getting people to talk just by genuinely asking them questions about their lives, never once turning the conversation back to him. He was so gentle, kind-hearted, and humble, as my brother pointed out. Everyone who met him could not help but adore him. There was no one I had more inside jokes with than my dad. He got my sense of humor, I got his. One memorable story that stands out is the one and only time I can ever remember getting in trouble with him. I don't remember why, but I remember him chasing me up the stairs, and as soon as he climbed those stairs, I just bursted out laughing because it was so absurd to me to see my dad mad. And then he started laughing. I think that is when our shared wit began to blossom. Or there was a time he took me to Michigan for my birthday to see snow for the very first time. And then he told me it was too cold to go sledding. I never let that one go. And if you know Barry, you know that he could be a bit of a worrier. He used to closely monitor our travel, so it became a tradition that I would get a rise out of him by telling him I hadn't left for the airport yet when the flight was scheduled to take off in about an hour. Or I would tell him I was on the way to the wrong airport. Despite my somewhat tumultuous teenage years, he always managed to stay calm and even-keeled. Like the time I backed into a parked car in the driveway or knocked the side mirror off the car in the garage. Instead of reprimanding me, he had me contribute money that I earned from work every week to go toward fixing the damages. And in true Barry fashion, he hung on to that money and returned it to me when I was an adult. Is it possible? Sorry. Is it possible that I will back into another parked car one day? Yes, very much so. But did I learn a valuable lesson? Yes, indeed. When I think of my dad as a grandpa to our children, Josie and Eli, or as they lovingly refer to him as Guy, I think, wow, I think he might like them better than my brother and I. My kids will forever be impacted by the quality time they got to spend with Guy in Connecticut and in Florida. He was such a loving, caring, generous, thoughtful, and hands-on grandpa. I will forever be grateful that my kids got to FaceTime with him this past weekend on Father's Day. Josie made him smile with the special artwork she created for him, and Eli even made him laugh when he wanted everyone to wish him a happy future Father's Day. I'd like to mention my mom just as my brother did. We could not have gotten through the past few years, or really all of my years, without her in the driver's seat, even though she doesn't love to drive. Just like I often think about how my dad would handle things, I think, all right, how would Debbie make this happen? Because she can make anything happen. Mom, thank you for being Dad's rock these past few years and always. I can't count how many times Dad praised you during our conversations, even just this past weekend. He thought the world of you, Mom. You've always picked up the pieces and done so much for our family, and there is not a better bubby in this world. I will forever be grateful that I went down to Florida this past weekend to spend time with my mom, brother, and dad, our core Glick unit, for one last time. I got to tell my dad how much I love him on our last Father's Day together. I want to finish mentioning a song that was very special to my dad and me. As many of you know, and my brother pointed out, he loved Broadway musicals, even if he had a reputation for falling asleep during the performances. My favorite brother helped me pick out this song for good from Wicked, a play I saw with my dad, for the father-daughter dance at our wedding. At the time, he helped me change the words to make it a little bit more upbeat for that time. But now, the real words could not be truer. It well may be that we will never meet again in this lifetime. So let me say before we part, so much of me is made of what I learned from you. You'll be with me like a handprint on my heart, and now, whatever way our stories end, I know you have rewritten mine by being my friend. Thank you again for all your love and support.
Okay, I'm Aaron Domu. Thank you guys all for being here today, virtually and in person. When Hillary entered my life 17 years ago, it quickly became clear, as Hillary pointed out, that Barry is her true real-life hero. I didn't copy that from her, and for good reason. There's been countless occasions where she has said, "My dad would do it this way," like filling up a tank of gas when borrowing a car, or picking up the phone for a difficult conversation instead of texting and having the message get misconstrued. Or she would say, "I think only my dad would understand that," like when referring for their shared unique fondness for Ziploc bags. Because of Barry and his words of wisdom, it has gotten to the point where sometimes I even stop myself in a situation and admirably think, what would Barry do? Although more likely, Hillary would beat me to it and say, why don't you just call my dad, okay? So many of the things that I love about Hillary are a chip off of Barry's block. They are both thoughtful and honest, generous with an empathetic nature, and of course, a quick wit. And now those traits are emerging in his grandchildren, Josie and Eli, who absolutely adored him and whom he adored right back. Back in 2012, when Josie was born, Hillary and I created what we thought was an amazing grandpa name for the kids to call him, merging the word grandpa with the name Barry and rhyming it with the fruit cranberry, and we came up with Granberry. What we didn't factor in, however, was how challenging that might be for a toddler to pronounce. And ever since, Barry will forever be remembered by us as, not as Granberry, but as Guy. A nickname that, of course, he rolled with, whether he was taking them for a ride in the golf cart or giving them personal golf lessons, cuddling with them on the couch while listening to their favorite music, or taking them for a quick trip to McDonald's for a Happy Meal. Those are three of the kids' many favorite pastimes with Barry when I interviewed them on the plane ride down. And they also wanted to point out how much they love him. Barry and I had always talked about going to a University of Michigan football game. For my 40th birthday in 2018, Barry secured several tickets for me and a few of my closest friends, and he met us in Ann Arbor for the game, despite having recently been diagnosed with multiple myeloma and about a month or so being diagnosed with advanced melanoma. He took us to the Alro tailgate, where we had an absolute blast hanging out with his strong Michigan crew, consisting of many of you who are here today, Glick family members and coworkers who were more like lifelong friends. And he made sure I had a fourth quarter pass to join him in the Alro box for a VIP viewing experience. It was so special for me to spend that quality time with him and get a glimpse of another facet of his extraordinary life. It has always been clear to me that Barry puts his family first. He puts Debbie first, who, as pointed out, has been such a loving and supporting spouse. He puts Hillary first. He puts Aaron first. He puts us all first. But that weekend, and on countless other occasions, I've seen that Barry also puts his friends first. He puts all you first. Instead of complaining about his health issues, he always asked, "How are you doing?" No matter if you are the University of Michigan football coach or you're the water boy, he asked how you're doing. He asked about your family. He asked about your job. He asked about your golf game. Mine, by the way, is non-existent, but Barry somehow golfed to 75 only 2 weeks ago, which is unbelievable. Debbie wanted me to say that Barry would have liked to humbly add that it was from the senior tees, but he's only been using those for a couple years. He loved connecting with all of you and could shoot the breeze in the kindest way about anything: sports, business, news, family, etc. I'm going to close with what my friends texted me about Barry when they learned he had passed, and I quote, "The kindest guy in the world." I quote, "He had such a tremendous strength to persevere through such adversity as if nothing was wrong." I quote, "A beloved individual who always made me and my family feel warm and loved." And I quote, "Barry was a cool cat." Thank you.
Don't worry, I don't have another speech. But what I do have is a very special message from my dad's uncle, my great uncle, Al Glick, who's in Michigan today and really wishes he could be here, but he can't. So instead, he sends this message.
can't express my sadness for losing Barry. And, you know, our whole family was lost. A great person that we all loved so much, and he did so much, and he was so caring, and words can't describe. I can't describe in words my feeling, but you know, life without Barry is something that I never thought I would see, and I know it can be difficult for all of us because Barry was such a great person, and when it comes to the business standpoint, you could never ask for anybody to do better than Barry did. He exceeded expectations on everything he did. He was so well liked, and everybody cared for him so much, and I know we're just all going to miss him. And you know, I've had several emails from people that knew Barry, especially when he lived in Jackson, and they all remember a great person. And I just don't know. I'm just sorry I can't be there tomorrow, but my body just won't let me get on a plane, and I'm not up to it at this time. So I don't know what else to say except words just can't express my feelings. So let's all hang in there, and we'll do the best we can without Barry. Thanks.
I am Carl, Barry's older brother. My siblings, Sue, Gary, Barry, and I grew up in Jackson, Michigan. Barry has been an amazing brother. We have always had a wonderful relationship, which has meant so much throughout our lives. We worked together regularly and often bounced ideas off each other. Barry's attitude was forever positive. Barry had a special relationship with our Uncle Al Glick. Al's influence on Barry for over 40 years helped him be successful in the business. Uncle Al's wisdom and experience guided Barry, and Barry had so much respect and love for Al. As we were growing up, we bowled on Saturday mornings, and in the fall we would go to Michigan football games with Dad, picking up burgers at Schlinker's for our tailgate. Barry and I enjoyed going to watch Dad bowl in the Jackson City League. That was so long ago, we actually kept score with a pencil. We also shared a love of golf. When we were young, we spent many hours chipping and putting at the Country Club of Jackson. Recently, we had many discussions about the advantages of the long-shafted putter. We joked about how often we would both switch from the long putter to the regular one and back again, never really perfecting our putting. Al and Dad had a great relationship with Dave Hill, who was a professional golfer from Jackson. Barry and I enjoyed following him at the different tournaments. It was exciting to watch him compete. We loved to travel as a family. This included many trips to northern Michigan, Florida, and a cross-country drive to visit the World Fair in Seattle. Rich,
Rich Weber, brother-in-law. As Carl described, Barry loves sports, not only for the joy of participation, but also for the unpredictable human factor that was brought to the competition, and particularly in his adult life, for that common thread that sports provides to help bring people together. For some years, Barry and I would fly up to Michigan from Florida to attend a football game with the Alro crowd at the Big House, the University of Michigan football stadium, as we heard Aaron describe to us. Barry and I would spend the day together. One day, it was September 24th, 2017, our day together was just magical. We tailgated, as Aaron described, in the parking lot of the stadium on a gorgeous, crisp Michigan autumn day. The game itself was great, with rivals Michigan and Penn State battling to the end. I so enjoyed seeing family and speaking with Alro customers and employees, and Barry loved watching everyone enjoy the experience. He loved partaking in it with Al, with whom he shared terrific pride for the job and productivity that Alro brought to the community. After the game, Brian closed up the box, and we accompanied Al to the car for his ride back to Jackson. And Barry and I drove to Detroit, where we had dinner at the Detroit Athletic Club. Thank you, Mike. I understand you're here today. We then attended a night game of baseball at the Tiger Stadium, where the Tigers in Kansas City fought for a trip to the World Series. We talked about cars, Broadway shows, family. I asked Barry about Alro customers, employees I'd met, and he filled me in because he knew everyone, as Carl will describe. I will always cherish the memory of those days with Barry. Soon after he was diagnosed with cancer the following year, I approached Barry specifically to explore his emotional and intellectual responses to having been diagnosed with life-threatening cancer. Now, this is a brilliant man, Barry. I wanted to act as a sounding board for his reflections on our mortality and on the human condition. But I quickly found out that Barry wanted absolutely no part of that discussion. Debbie and I laughed and cried 2 days ago, recalling this, when Barry told Debbie, "Keep Rich away from me with that stuff." And I realized that to wax philosophical was not who Barry was. We need to focus on the positive, as Aaron pointed out to us. That's who Barry was. Like his father before him, Barry strove to keep things simple. He held traditional values: positivity, hard work, personal responsibility, devotion to family, respect for others, loyalty, honesty, and, as Aaron pointed out, modesty. There was not an ounce of pretense in this man who was so accomplished. That's my take on the brother I loved. Carl will describe his.
Barry was not what you might call a foodie. He was a healthy eater with a McDonald's burger and a few M&Ms thrown in on occasion. Grilled chicken was his go-to food. Barry showed that he cared about everyone. He was genuinely interested in their families, their work, and their lives. He saw the good in people, and he was loved and respected by so many, especially me. Barry was my best man at our wedding, and he has been my best man ever since. I miss him so much already. It was too soon for him to leave us all. Thank you.
I need to introduce myself. Wow, look at all of you here. I must say that a lot of my material has been taken and already addressed. So I'm going to skip through some of it so we're not repeating things. But as I look out and I see all of your faces, I know that Barry would be so touched. You all represent family. You represent friends, and you represent our life together, from Benton Harbor, Jackson, Coral Springs, Fairfield, and Boca Raton. Our movie group, our CBI friends, Barry's golf friends, Barry's poker friends, my book club friends, Woodfield Country Club friends and neighbors, Alro friends, our travel group, all people that we love so very, very much. We appreciate the congregation providing YouTube availability so that family and friends who are not able to make it here from far away may be with us too. We wish we could see you, we wish you could speak to us, but we know you can see us. I want to mention two people who were not able to travel to Florida from Michigan, but they have been such an important part of our lives. Number one, Uncle Al. Uncle Al's been mentioned by, I think, every speaker so far. Al was Barry's uncle, his mentor, his boss, his friend, and like a second father to Barry. My Aunt Eileen, who also became Barry's aunt 46 years ago, and many cousins and friends who are viewing as well. Barry was born in Jackson. I think I'm going to skip over this because you already know about the details of his family, being one of four, growing up in Jackson, Michigan, the golf connection with pro golfers. One cute story I remember Barry's mom, Rose, telling me is that mostly every time they went to Parkside High School for an event, they picked up the program and Barry's name was on it. Barry never mentioned a thing about being honored or playing the drums or playing the typewriter or all the various things that happened. Afterwards, they would say, Barry, why didn't you tell us? Tell you what. I mean, it was no big deal. Barry wanted no credit at all. Just recently, Barry and I were talking about the past and different things, and he remembered that he was asked to speak at his high school graduation. The way Barry saw it, he was asked to speak because he was the token Jewish kid in his class, and they needed representation, he said. The way I see it is that Barry was an excellent student, a great guy, an all-around guy, and they wanted him to speak because of these special qualities. How we met. Some of you know this story, some of you don't. Well, it was a good old-fashioned way. We were matched. No, Yenta the matchmaker wasn't involved, but my Aunt Eileen, who I mentioned earlier, and her husband, Uncle Jack, and Barry's dad, Bob, knew each other through business. They had a business relationship and were business friends. My aunt and uncle stopped to visit Barry's dad in Jackson, and while they were there, Barry happened to come into the office. As soon as my aunt took one look at this handsome young man, she said to Bob, I have a girl for your son. Bob gave my number to Barry. He put it in his wallet. 2 years later, Barry called me, and Alro bought a small company in my city of Benton Harbor, and Barry was sent to manage his first location, his first Alro location. He called me as soon as he arrived in Benton Harbor. He moved into the hotel, and he called me. We had a date. Our first date was dinner and dancing. It was lovely. Our second date was burgers from a local joint. And we went to Alro to organize files, rearrange things, and yes, he did put me to work. Barry handled that venture and that new responsibility like he did everything else. He put his whole heart and soul into it. Through the years, people were constantly saying to us, you two are so cute together. You make such a great couple. Barry and I had rhythm. We had a bond. We had mutual respect. We could say almost anything to one another. Barry never asked me how much I weighed. He couldn't ask me that. We laughed a lot. We had so much fun. We have 3, 1 through marriage, wonderful children. When I tell people that we have 3 children, they say, gosh, known you all these years, thought you only had 2. We have 3. We have 3 children. We have 2 Aarons, we like that name, and a Hillary. We have a Josie and we have an Eli. So, I have to catch up here. We traveled as a family with Aaron and Hillary through the years. We took some extraordinary trips, including Amsterdam and Copenhagen. We cruised to Alaska, which Barry said, or Hillary, Aaron and Barry and I had a wonderful time. Hillary was in college. And we said, are you having fun? Is this great? And she said, oh, nothing like a cold cruise. But we had a great time. We went to national parks and ski resorts, big cities, and so many trips to Michigan to see family. Barry loved being in the good old United States of America. After the kids went off to college, we joined the congregational trip to Israel. We loved the trip. It was wonderful. It was Barry's second trip to Israel, and it was my first trip. But what we especially loved was the people that we met on that trip. After that trip, we were asked to join Jeff Cooper's travel group, which is what I like to call it. We went on many wonderful trips with this group of people. Sometimes there were a couple of changes in who came with us, but everyone was wonderful. At the end, well, I left something out. Jeff likes to go to Europe. And as I said, Barry loved the good old USA. So he wasn't thrilled about going out of the country, but we went. At the end of every trip, and there were a lot of cruises, we would get off the ship, and as we were exiting, Jeff would say, well, I went and talked to somebody, and we can get a deal, and I think that we will go to such and such and such and such. And it would be back to Europe. It would be out of the country. And Barry would look at me and say, you want to go? And I'd say, yes. And Barry said, sign us up. So that's what we did. Then there was the trip to China. Aaron lived and worked in China for 2 years. Well, you know Barry. He was not excited about China. What did he worry the most about? Food. What the heck was he going to eat in China? So we went to China and had the time of our lives. Aaron set it all up, and we had drivers and we had tours, and Aaron was with us most of the time. But when he needed to work, Barry and I were scared to death, but we ventured out in the various areas, and we had a wonderful time. Of course, you know Barry loved McDonald's, so he always felt when we were in Europe that he was safe to eat at McDonald's. The others would follow, maybe having a Coke or French fry or a shake or something like that. Nobody wanted to eat their food, but Barry would sit there, enjoy his hamburger, cut it in half, take 2 buns, you know, the whole thing. So we were in China. I remember walking up, the McDonald's was up some steps, and Barry got his food, and on the way down, he said to the 2 of us, to Aaron and myself, he said, you know, I feel so good eating here because I know what I'm getting. You know, at McDonald's, you can count on what you're getting. And Aaron said, Dad, you're in China. Barry said, forget it. It's fine. I know what I'm eating. After our wedding, which was in Benton Harbor, many of you were there, we moved to Jackson, which is where Barry was from. We lived there for over 7 years. We bought a lovely ranch. We had our wonderful son, Aaron, got involved in the community, in the temple. Barry played a lot of golf and was on 2 bowling teams. I was able to meet so many of Barry's childhood friends, and we became friendly as couples and had play groups and got together at the country club and at our homes, and we spent 7 wonderful years in Jackson. We had the opportunity to move to Florida, and we have spent almost 40 years here. We started out in Coral Springs. I see many of our friends that we met almost 40 years ago right in front of us. And we loved the community. We loved the temple. We loved our friends. Hillary was born there. The kids had so many friends and activities. Alro owned, actually, the land in Boca, And Barry knew that eventually the company would build a facility in Boca. It did. They did. So we were outgrowing our home, and we decided that we would move to Boca. Once again, we joined a synagogue. Being this synagogue, we've been here over 30 years. I've been on this bima many times with Barry for wonderful occasions. We celebrated Aaron's bar mitzvah, Hillary's bat mitzvah, so many wonderful life cycle events and holidays and the sisterhood board and the brotherhood board and the temple board, which Barry and I both served on. We've been very happy and blessed to be in Boca Raton, and we had such a fruitful life with friends, activities in beautiful sunny Florida. Barry volunteered and served on the Brotherhood Board, the Temple Board, I think I already said that. SOS Village was a very important place to Barry. It was near and dear to his heart. Barry volunteered there with me, and many times through the years, we would go to birthday parties and carnivals and different things. And I would walk around and talk to people, or maybe I was helping, to do something. And all of a sudden, I would see Barry, and he'd be surrounded by these little kids. And I thought, uh-oh, how many kids is he going to want to bring home with him? Each time, there were one or two that he seriously wanted to. We didn't, but Barry loved being there. He had a heart of gold. I'd like to read a couple of short messages that I got. Barry served on many, as well as the temple, many community and business boards. And this is from somebody that he had worked with on a board for many years. We used to go to conventions. Many of you know we did 2 for a while, and some of you here were with us at those conventions. And there were 2 for a while, like I said, and then it was once a year. And then there were some golf things and different things that the Alro group traveled to. This says, "Dear Debbie, I just wanted to express my sincere sympathy to you and your kids and grandkids on Barry's passing. I was heartbroken to hear it today. You and Barry are just some of my favorite people, and I've been fortunate to know you through the old NAAD and the MSCI. You both have always been such role models of happy marriage, family, and good perspective on life. I admire you both. I'll never forget Barry's willingness to support and volunteer within MSCI, and I'll never forget his kindness to me throughout the years." It says it all. It says it all. Here's another beautiful one. As you can imagine, the kids and I are just getting so many messages, which we appreciate so well. And all of them say he was kind, he was gentle, he was considerate, he was thoughtful. Dear Debbie, Glick family members, and all of Alro, I was deeply saddened to learn of Barry's passing. On behalf of our MSCI community, I want to express our most heartful and deepest condolences. Barry exemplified all that is great in mankind and was respected by all of our industry. He served on our board with distinction and was a role model to many. My heart is heavy as we mourn his loss, yet feeling blessed to have known him as we celebrated his life. Now I'm going to forget where I was. Okay, I was sharing the letters. Barry wanted to know, as has been mentioned, he wanted to know everything about everyone, as you've experienced. He wanted to know what your kids were doing, and about your health, and your new house, your new job, how you were feeling, if you were happy, if you had just survived an operation, whatever. Barry wanted to be there. He wanted to know about it. Barry took notes. Next to your name in Barry's phone are notes with your children's names, with all the information, if you have a new grandchild. He was just so, it meant so much to him to do that. If we were driving to meet friends for dinner, whom we hadn't seen in a long time, he said, "Okay, Debbie, refresh my memory. Now, is the daughter still in Washington? Is the son still," He didn't want to go and sit at that table and talk about himself. He wanted to talk about them, to ask about them, to be there for them. You've heard so many incredible things today about my beloved husband, Barry. You know, Barry was an avid golfer and made so many friends on the course. When we traveled or he was invited to play with new people, they were always impressed by his sweet swing and his easygoing way during the game. You may have learned some new things today about Barry, but many of you didn't know that Barry had a girlfriend. Yes, a golf girlfriend who is here today with her husband. I like to joke about this, but she was more like a sister to Barry. She was there for him in good times and in bad times. When Barry was sick and he couldn't play golf for a long time, she kept him up on everything that was happening with the group. He looked so forward to her detailed messages, and let me tell you, they were detailed. And of course, a little bit of gossip was thrown in the mix. He was fortunate to play with a group of people that he thoroughly enjoyed being with. Through the years, he has met so many wonderful people, and so many of you are here today to share this celebration of Barry's life. We're so blessed with our children, Aaron, Hillary, and Air, along with the grandkids. As much as we enjoyed raising our two children, being grandparents is the frosting on the cake. We rented an apartment in Fairfield for nearly 5 years, near Hillary and her family. We spent so much time going back and forth. Barry had a computer there and a desk. He could work while we were there. And we loved being with the kids. We had a 2-bedroom apartment. We did a lot of sleepovers with Josie and Eli. Guy was the bagel man and always provided fresh bagels in the morning. We took the kids places. We did activities. We went on train rides. Being right next door to the train station, we were able to jump on the train from Fairfield, Connecticut to go into the city, which we tried to do during almost every visit. Of course, we tried to see a Broadway show, which you know Barry loved, and yes, he did take a nap quite often, but he loved it. And I would say, you know, Barry, it would really be cheaper if we just stayed home and watched something on TV. You know, Broadway tickets are kind of costly. And he said, no, I want to go. And he tried to stay awake. He tried. My dad and Barry's dad were great buddies. Every Thursday, they had lunch together. Barry tried to join, as he called them, the Sunshine Boys, when his schedule allowed. They would meet at a deli in Deerfield. When Barry arrived on time, they had finished their chicken soup, and their shared sandwich was either in front of them or had been completely devoured. They would watch Barry eat and appreciated the fact that he took time out of his schedule to be with them. What my dad and Barry's dad didn't realize was how very much it meant to him to be there for them. Barry and I were so blessed to blend our families. It was so wonderful. The Glick-Karnowski bond was so amazing. We did holidays together. We did Simcas. Unfortunately, we did all life cycle events. They were not all Simcas. But we just had the greatest bond. And it didn't just include my parents and Barry's parents. It was the siblings and the cousins. It was just wonderful. Barry's food issues have been addressed, so I'm not going to go into that. I was so blessed to live with this incredible, remarkable man for 46 years. We would have celebrated our anniversary next month in July. He was always considerate, kind, he had a wonderful sense of humor, thoughtful. He would always try to help me and be there for me. Mary made me feel so special and so loved. Our love was strong, and we walked through this cancer venture as a team. Not only our family will miss Barry, but the world will be a different place. In the past few days, I have heard from so many people, the more Barry Glicks in this world, it would be a better place if we had more Barry Glicks. Thanks for being there for us during the pandemic and during the cancer venture. You came to our home when we weren't going out, and you brought food, and we shared jokes and laughs, and we were at a distance, a long distance. We were here and you were over there, but we thank all of you. Can't tell you how much you helped us and how much we appreciated you being there for us. Please join us at the celebration of Barry's life this afternoon at 3:15 at Woodfield Country Club. The menu will be a tribute to Barry's favorite foods. Thank you all. We love you all.
Okay. So many things have been said, and you've heard them over and over again, and I will share with you something said probably close to 3,000 years ago that indeed pertains to Barry. Almost 3,000 years ago, the prophet Micah told his contemporaries, "What is good and what the Lord requires of you is to act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God." Thousands of years ago, the prophet Micah understood that that description is what best describes Barry Glick. Micah was a prophet who displayed great sensitivity and concern for social justice. He was a fearless champion of the cause of the oppressed. Much of his preaching was against those who caused misery and suffering among people. His admonishment to act justly would have been understood in his time as living with a sense of right and wrong. In particular, a responsibility to provide equity and protection, especially among the poor and for women and children. This was a hallmark of Barry's life. To help those who were in need. He did it throughout his life. The second characteristic I'll mention is walking humbly with God. In our tradition, modesty or humility is among the greatest of virtues. Its opposite, pride, is among the worst of vices. Greatness and humility in the Jewish tradition are not incompatible. They complement one another. Consider that Moses, the greatest of all of our people in our tradition, is described as the most humble. Barry was not great because of his modesty, but his humility only added to his greatness. And finally, the third quality that Micah mentions, mercy or goodness. The Hebrew word that's translated as such is really chesed, or kindness. I don't think there's been a person who's come up here this morning, this afternoon, that has not talked about Barry's kindness. Judaism did not allow mercy to remain merely a feeling, a kind of inner glow of benevolence or pity. It demanded that that feeling be translated into a host of benevolent acts, what we call gimilut chasadim, or acts or deeds of loving kindness. Our tradition helps us understand what some of those are, like visiting the sick and comforting the bereaved, extending hospitality to others, caring for the orphan and widow, promoting peace between people. An act of loving kindness is a humane response to human need. It is your pain in my heart. Loving kindness reveals the inability to remain content in the presence of a person who is troubled, the inability to remain comfortable in the presence of a person who is uncomfortable, the inability to enjoy serenity when one's neighbor is distressed. Perhaps the most important art to be cultivated in life is the art of loving kindness. For the person who has mastered it, is doing God's work here on earth. Friends, that was Barry. That's the Barry Glick I knew. I believe that this was perhaps Barry's greatest virtue, his kindness and his Menschlichkeit. I share with you a rabbinic passage within which we perhaps find the ultimate tribute to loving kindness. There are 10 strong things. Iron is strong, but fire melts it. Fire is strong, but water quenches it. Water is strong, but the clouds evaporate it. Clouds are strong, but wind drives them away. Man is strong, but fear casts him down. Fear is strong, but wine allays it. Wine is strong, but sleep overcomes it. Sleep is strong, but death is stronger. And loving kindness survives death. Though Barry has left this world, his kindness indeed survives as it is remembered by so many of us. May his memory inspire us all to a higher, more elevated life of justice, of kindness, and of humility. Then indeed will our world be a better place, and his memory will inspire it. Zichron livracha. May his memory be for blessing. There's much more I'd like to say. We don't have the time to say it. But I want to give Cantor the opportunity, in that Barry was such a fan of Broadway, and as Hillary talked about, the song For Good from Wicked, that Cantor is going to share that with us in memory of Barry.
I've heard it said that people come into our lives for a reason, bringing something we must learn, and we are led to those who help us most to grow if we let them. And we help them in return. Well, I don't know if I believe that's true, but I know I'm who I am today because I met you. Like a comet pulled from orbit as it passes the sun, like a stream that meets a boulder halfway through the wood. Who can say if I've been changed for the better because I knew you? I have been changed for good. It well may be that we will never meet again in this lifetime. So let me say before we part, so much of me is made of what I learned from you. You'll be with me like a handprint in my heart. And now whatever way our stories end, I know you have rewritten mine by being my friend. Like a ship blown from its moorings by the wind of the sea, like a seed dropped by a skybird in the distant wood. Who can say if I've been changed for the better? Because I knew you, because I knew you, I have been changed for good. And just to clear the air, I ask forgiveness for the things I've done you blame me for. But then again, we know there's blame to share, and none of it seems to matter anymore. Like a comet pulled from orbit as it passes the sun, like a stream that meets a boulder halfway through the wood. Who can say if I've been changed for the better? I do believe I have been changed for the better, because I knew you, because I knew you, because I knew you, I have been changed for good.
Let me ask all of us, please, to rise as Cantor now offers the memorial prayer for Barry.
El Malei Rachamim Shochein Bamromim Amsei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei Ashchina Im Kiddushim Uteorim Kizohar Harakia Masirim Et Nishmat Yosef Ber Ben Reuven Aharon Shehalach Leolamo Baal Harachamim Yastirehu Beseter Kenafav Leolamim Veitzror Bitzror Achayim Et Nishmato Adonai Hu Nachalato וינוח בשלום על משכבו, על משכבו. ונאמר Amen.
O God, exalted and full of compassion, grant perfect peace in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of our dear Barry Glick, who has gone to his eternal home. Master of mercy, we beseech you, remember all the worthy and righteous deeds that he performed in the land of the living. May his soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Eternal God is now his portion. May he rest in peace, and we all say, Amen. Amen. Friends, please be seated. We're going to get momentarily our final instructions from our funeral director regarding burial out at Eternal Light, followed by, as Debbie mentioned, a celebration of Barry's life, where all are invited back to Woodfield Country Club following the burial to the bistro. Family request memorial donations in Barry's memory be made to SOS Children's Village or your charity of choice. We will memorialize the name of Barry Glick during the period of Shiva and Shloshim every Shabbat here at Congregation B'nai Israel at Friday night and Saturday morning Shabbat services. At this time, we're going to invite the honorary pallbearers forward. Brian Glick, Steve Glick, Lori Burke, David Weber, Jason Weinberg, Karen Beckman, Aaron, Hillary, Aaron, and Gary Glick, as to escort the casket as we depart the sanctuary this afternoon. Now, please give your attention to our funeral director.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the services here in the sanctuary of Mr. Barry Glick of blessed memory. On behalf of the immediate family, we wish to thank those of you here in attendance paying tribute. Interment will take place at Eternal Light Memorial Gardens on State Route 441 in Boynton Beach. There are stickers available for your car. The family has provided also escorts for your safety to arrive. At this time, please rise, face the middle aisle, and follow the immediate family as we exit the rear of the sanctuary. Thank you.